That's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking, I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building, you know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, show your love, show your support, you know what I'm saying? This that dope soul, this that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the Recap and Reaction Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, joined by my co-host, Geoff Clafter of the Happily Ever Clafter Daily Sports Blog, also resident panelist on the weekly show. The Knicks lost 2 in a row, 111-99 to the Atlanta Hawks at MSG. They were without Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and we forget Landry Shamet. And the Knicks did not do well. We'll get, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the shooting. You could talk about who's missing. You shoot 37% from the field, 20% from three, you're going to lose the game, period. Period. We'll talk about Karl Anthony Towns and just how important he is, to this team. You could talk about, and there's been a lot of talk about the Knicks defense and how, they don't have anything to fall back on when they don't shoot well. And last night was a game, right, where they did not shoot well. I think what's catching up to the Knicks is attrition. I think what's catching up, it's like you're like, oh, we're getting away with our lack of defense because we're shooting well to make up for it. And that's true. But we've been getting away with key players being out of the lineup. And last night, in my opinion, was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, now you're going to take out Towns? Now you're going to take out Karl Anthony Towns? To me, I think that was the straw that was too much. The defense wasn't great. The shooting wasn't great. But trying to win a game without Karl Anthony Towns, and I'll just make this point, Geoff, and then we'll get right into it. HUKPORTI, in my opinion, had a really good game as far as counting stats were concerned. Right, he earned a place on the show's thumbnail today. He had 8 points. 16 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, went to the line 4 times, made all 4 of his free throws, only took 4 shots, made 2 of them, 50% from the field. He did what he could, he did what he could do. If you said, what are you expecting from HUKPORTI? What if he gets 16 rebounds? You're like, wow, without Hart, without Towns, if we can get 16 rebounds from HUKPORTI, that would be good. But I want to make the point between counting stats and how a team, how a particular skill set impacts how the rest of your team can play, right? So Towns, even when he's not shooting well, he commands respect, right? He has gravity, he has space, he pulls the center out of the paint, that opens up passing lanes, that opens up driving lanes. I mean, you have to respect Karl Anthony Towns, even if he ends the night with 10 points and 8 rebounds in 38 minutes, right? He allows the team to play in space. You bring in HUKPORTI, who's having you could say a career a night, 8 points, 16 rebounds, 4 block shots. You don't have to respect him on the offensive end. And I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just pointing out how it changes how we play. Now you can crowd Brunson. Now, even if you put him up at the top of the key to 3-point line, obviously his guy can't stand right in the key, but he can be like a foot or 2 off of him, which helps with the rotations, right? That person can crowd Brunson a little bit. That person can roam a little bit. The space is a little tight. Now you don't have the driving. Brunson can score in a phone booth, but for the most part, you don't have the spacing you would have. You don't have the cutting lanes, the driving lanes you would have. So even with his career game, it's a different ball game for the Knicks, and Atlanta is like, oh, we got an extra defender now, right? Because just imagine them having to defend with Okongwu nailed to Towns at the top of the 3-point line, and how they can play Okongwu defensively when HUKPORTI is in the game. And again, not to take anything away from HUKPORTI, but as my co-host, now I'll let him uh, say the difference between HUKPORTI and because he had something, it was really nice about the career year from one and career game from one versus a bad game from another. But anyway, Geoff, I hope I didn't take too much meat off the bone. We still got a lot to talk about defensively, shooting wise, and other things like that. But just really wanted to highlight the importance of Karl Anthony Towns and to shout out Jarrell, who took it to another level on the weekly show, who basically said, Karl Anthony Towns is not your second best player, you're not winning a championship, period. And this might have been a example of that. And you could say, oh, this is just a small sample size. If he misses a few more games, they'll adjust and they'll get Nah, no, not at all. Geoff?
Well, first of all, just a sublime soliloquy there. I don't know that we need to say much more about this game than that. So bravo to you. Well spoken. But I think you missed the most important news from the injury report last night, and that was that Trae Young didn't play.
Right.
This Atlanta team has been outstanding when Young has been on the bench. When he's in the game, they've struggled mightily, and so this Hawks team is pretty talented. Jalen Johnson is very good. Okongwu is good. Nickeil Alexander-Walker salivates when he sees the Knicks for some reason. He turns into Michael Jordan Jr. And they really took it to us last night. They had Kristaps back, I guess. I don't think he was that impactful last night, but still, you talk about, he has that spacing effect like Towns does, right? He changes how your defense bends, and especially when you have young players who are trying to figure out where they need to be. I thought the defense in the middle quarters was particularly porous, which not a good sign. But to go back to your point from earlier, Ariel HUKPORTI had a career game. Like, he was 4 blocks, 16 rebounds. He's just not Karl Anthony Towns. Like, HUKPORTI on his best day doesn't affect the game the way Karl Anthony Towns does, even on his worst day. The bridge between those two players is so vast and so wide, and it was it was evident with what we saw last night. As you said, they didn't guard him. I mean, beat us if you can. I mean, even, he only took 4 shots, which is fine. But, and I don't want to downplay his performance because he was fantastic last night. He really did you can't ask a guy to be anything more than the best he can be, right? If you played your best and you left it all out there, that's all you can do. And I think you can honestly say that about Ariel, but sometimes it's just not enough, right? That we as currently constructed need more from that center position just to make our team run better. And I think Josh Hart missing compounds that too, because Josh Hart doesn't shoot the ball particularly well, but he can create offense too. He can do things, with fast breaks and those sorts of things. And that I think the Knicks are really missing right now too. I think his absence is not really one that we're focusing on, but I think it's a significant one also. And especially when it's like a multiplier effect. You got no Hart, no Robinson, no Cat. And then, that's 3 of your bigs really, because we like to play Hart almost as a 3-4. So you're talking about most of your rebounding. And again, HUKPORTI did everything he could do. He got 16 boards and Anunoby got 10, but it's not the same as when those guys are in there, because they don't do the same things once they get the rebound. It's just a very different dynamic. And if you're going to be missing 4 of your rotation pieces, you need your guys to shoot well to compensate and make up for that. You can't be missing 4 rotation pieces and shoot the ball like garbage and be poor in transition defense.
Right.
And, the ands can, pile up. So it was, a fusion of confusion and a few confounding things. And hopefully we play better tonight against Philadelphia, because we're in danger of a 3-game losing streak if we don't, have a much better effort tonight on a second game of a back-to-back.
Yeah, and hopefully Towns plays.
Amen.
Hopefully Towns plays. Part of the Knicks shooting bad was Atlanta, and how they were able to play defensively without Trae Young, right? So they got length, they have speed, they have better defensive players in the game. You don't have spacing, you can load up on Brunson. I think a big part of it was them. The Knicks may have, also missed, open looks as well. OG is not having, he's going through a bad stretch from the 3-point line, at least. He had 19 points last night. 8 of them were from the free throw line, but just 1 of 6 from the 3. The Knicks only shot 21% from the 3-point line. They took 42 shots. And this is a team that's top 5, I think, in both attempts and efficiency, definitely top 10. They want to take 40 a night, and last night they did. They took 42, and they only made 9. Bridges 3 for 11, OG 1 of 6, Brunson 1 of 8, and McBride 3 of 10. McBride 3 of 10 was the best of the bunch. No, Clarkson was 1 of 3. You're just not going to win games, particularly how this team is built and how this team likes to play. If you're not hitting threes, that decreases your chances, of winning. Then, what's the next thing we like to do? Get second chance, opportunities to put to 4 threes. We're not hitting those. And we did get 14, offensive rebounds last night, but I think it only turned into 12 second chance points. So we're missing Robinson as far as that's concerned. We're missing Hart as far as that's concerned. But again, getting offensive rebounds is one thing. Converting them is another. The Knicks were already plus 9 in shot attempts, field goal attempts over Atlanta. So you're getting these extra shots, which is what you want to do with offensive rebounds. But if you're not converting them, let me reframe that. It bodes well for you if you're not shooting efficiently to get more shots, right? And the Knicks did that last night. They got, I think it was 8 more shot attempts overall than Atlanta, but the efficiency was so bad. You know what I mean? Like they would have probably needed 50 more shots to make up for shooting 37% from the field and 21% from 3, right? So that, being plus 8 wasn't enough to make up for that poor shooting night, that they had. And this is the Knicks now. When their shots are not falling, this is not a team that could fall back on their defense. I will say this about their defense before I turn it back over to you, Geoff, and where you want to go next. I don't think the Knicks will ever be a top 10 defense. I don't think they need to be with their offense. However, the Knicks are not being their best defensive self, right? Because you've seen solid defense for stretches, right? You've seen solid defense for quarters. So for me, it's, what's their ceiling on defense, their particular ceiling on defense, and can they do that for 48 minutes, right? And they haven't, and they need to. They need to find their ceiling and be there for 48 minutes. And that just hasn't been the case. They're not going to be a top 10 defense. I just don't believe they will be, even at their ceiling. But I don't think they need to be. Geoff, where do you want to?
Well, I think that's a great point, but I also want to say when you're dealing with as many injuries as we're dealing with, it's tough to be a top defensive team because you've got to be on a string, right? If you're playing with different guys every night, that's great that we have depth, but part of team defense is being on the same page and knowing where everybody's going to be and developing that trust and that chemistry. It's like we always said, being, connected with a string, right? And it's tough to be connected with a string when every 5 seconds one of the guys who's supposed to be in the loop is now on the bench, and now somebody else has to come in, and a lot of times that's a rookie or a second-year player who, maybe not the same caliber defensively. So it's, and I think that we lost a lot of our gravity last night is what I would say. Even Mitchell Robinson is not necessarily a scorer, but his offensive rebounding produces gravity, right? Because he's going to bring 2 people to him for the block out, and that opens up driving lanes and penetration for the team as well. And when you think about, this has been a weakness of the team. We don't really have a lot of guys who can penetrate and create their own shot off the dribble consistently on their own. I mean, we've said, how many times have we said it's pretty much Brunson and Clarkson and pray for, the roof to collapse in the gym so we can do it another day, And so I think that's rearing its ugly head right now. And look, the game plan is to take a bunch of 3-point shots, right? That's part of it. So, the quality of those 3-point shots, I don't think was as good as it's been, though, right? I think sometimes, there's a big difference between the ball moving and you getting a wide open corner 3 versus, a contested 3 because the shot clock is running down and you got to hoist one up, right? Those are different percentage plays there. And so, I just think that it was, it's tough when you're missing all those guys. It's just, you can argue that they should have played better, and I think that's true. But we in some senses we were better defensively in that we only gave up 111. We've been 115 plus for each of the last 7 games. So the really concerning part was the 99, right? That's where the Knicks really lost this game. I thought in the second and third quarter, the transition defense really hurt us. Like we would miss and then we wouldn't get back. And that's a red flag to me. I don't think that that's something that we've consistently seen. I thought that was more of a last night thing. I don't know if you feel the same way about it. I mean, we've had other defensive problems, but I don't feel like we've had that specific one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where that came from, or I don't know if it was just a function of taking a lot of long threes and missing, what leads to long rebounds, and that it was just a case of that. That the misses were creating that, or if there was something else systemically. We need Freezy or Lee, I think, to come on and speak to that a little better. I would be fascinated to see what they're seeing in the game, because I don't naturally gravitate towards seeing it like that. But that's what I would say. What do you think about that, Steph?
Can you say that one more time? The question. I'm sorry, I was reviewing my notes and I missed the
No, that's okay.
question.
My question is: did you think that the poor transition defense? Did you think that was a last night thing, or do you think that's been a season long thing that we're just going to have to live with, or do you think it was exacerbated last night, or just by the missed shots, or what do you think the genesis was for such a poor game transition wise?
I mean, it for last night, it could have been a few things. It could have been fatigue. It could have been, different lineups, maybe getting assignments mixed up. It could have been that, even though the Knicks should be used to different lineups, right? Mike Brown just throws in, throws out a lineup and figure it out. It could be that the Knicks, as far as points off turnovers are a top 10 team, if I'm not mistaken. But again, that doesn't account for all transition points, right? Because you can get in transition and it doesn't have to be off of a turnover, right? So I don't know where the stat is to tease that out. And, and maybe there is an advanced stat out there that, will say the Knicks are not a good transition defensive team. To the eye test, I would guess they're middle of the road. I would guess
weren't
they're
last
middle of the
night.
road. Not last night, right. Not last night. I mean, but listen, are we equating transition and fast break the same? Somebody let me know if there's a slight difference between transition and fast break, right? I would think they're the same. But I could be off on that. Knicks had 28 fast break points. They had 27. But I get your point. The fact that you matched them doesn't mean that that you were good. So particularly if you're trying to come back in a game, right?
And we finally, like, if we had played like we did in the fourth quarter, we might have stolen the game, right? We've seen that a lot from this Knicks team. They'll play really great for 1 or 1.5 quarters, and then the rest of the game they're kind of on cruise control. And a lot of times they get away with it. Well, with Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels and Okongwu and NAW playing like they were, you're not going to get away with that. Like the middle quarter, I mean, brutal. Especially from an offensive process standpoint, it was tough to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah. Anything else before we, get to the chat? Bridges, 18 points, 7 of 19 shooting. He did take 19 shots. OG, we talked about 19 and 10. Brunson, 24 points, 10 of 24 shooting. Only 1 for 10 for 3. Really frustrated with really frustrated last night, with the I think it was because of the physicality that Atlanta played with and that the officials allowed them, to play with. And he just didn't have the spacing I think he's he's used to when Cat is there. I'm not buying into, I know there's some in the chat talking about, and I'll get to this comment in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of length. He struggles with length. I'm just not buying it. Like, I just feel like it's hyperbole, like if Brunson has one bad game against length or a bad game against physicality, now all of a sudden he struggles with physicality and he struggles with length when we have, I don't know, a huge sample size that's just not the case, that he will figure it out, whether you're physical, whether you have length, whether you have speed, you'll figure it out, right? Daniels is one of the best perimeter defenders in the game. I thought Brunson did okay against him the last game. Don't get me wrong, he does make it tough. I'm not taking that away from him at all. But I'm not buying into this overall narrative that Brunson struggles against whatever you want to say.
But the Knicks didn't do anything to help him last night either. Like if you're not going to make another team pay for loading up on the guy like that, that's on OG and that's on Bridges and that's on everybody else who's around him. Like we've seen that play and we've seen that game before. Like that was the playoffs 3 years ago, like the Miami series, especially where Brunson was the only one out there doing anything. And he's willing to take the mantle. He's willing to take the shots. But as far as the aggressiveness goes, that's what the playoffs is, right? They don't call as many fouls in the postseason. So, you better buckle up, Buttercup, because, that's what's coming. I mean, and I think as the playoffs come, they're going to load up more on Brunson anyway. And even if it is Cat or somebody else, they're going to say, okay, we're going to, because you want to cut off the head of the snake and then, let everyone else beat you. But when you have Josh Hart creating for others, and you have, Towns able to knock down the three from the top and all of those things, that makes it more difficult, right? It creates more difficult problems than playing 4-on-3 with guys who aren't necessarily natural born scorers. Let's just put it that way.
Right. And I think that's what makes the Knicks tough when they are whole and everyone's playing and everyone is doing their job. You can't load up on Brunson, right? If you have OG and Bridges hitting their corner shots, you have Cat, creating, space. You have Hart. If you do try to double and you get him in that short mid roll, and he can locate, 4-on-3, he's pretty good in that role in terms of, getting us a good shot. So, some of it is, again, not being whole, and some of it is just issues that have been there throughout the course of the season that may have been covered up by our, great offense. That needs to be corrected. Anything else before
and I guess one other thing is that we kind of get spoiled. Cat has 20 points and it's a bad game, right? But when you think about it, when you have a guy who's consistently going to get you those 20 points, and you don't have to worry about manufacturing those 20 points, that's a big deal. And HUKPORTI had a nice game, but he had 4 or 8, something like that. So he did a good job. He had 8, I think. But that ain't 20, right? And then and where else does that come from? And last night we just didn't have anybody pick up the slack for that, what's been such a consistent performance from Town.
And then the fact of the matter is, you could talk about the Knicks defense, but this was an offensive loss. 99 points. 99 points. When you want to try to hold Atlanta or any team in the NBA to 96? You know what I mean? Like 88? Like, it's just not going to happen. You have to score the ball. 99 points is not enough. And to me, it was, in my opinion, Cat not being there and how that just impacts the ripple effects of that and what it allows Atlanta's defense to do. The Knicks, to your point, as you said a little earlier, not getting the clean 3-point looks that they got. And then, not a lot of help off the bench, though we had one of our guys, McBride, who plays on the bench, who started last night. But I do want to 19-24. Knicks had 19 bench points. They had 24.
Well, half our bench was starting, so that's actually not bad at all, in my opinion. Like, yeah, we're just with who's out there. HUKPORTI is a bench player and a fringe bench player, right? He's not a guy.
You wouldn't have got nothing from him. I think it was more McBride was the main bench player in the starting lineup, right? HUKPORTI, sometimes he doesn't even play.
Yeah.
All right. Family, what's the vibe? Knicks lost 2 in a row. Are you just chalking this up to attrition? Or are you really concerned about the Knicks? I hope, family, you're not too down on the Knicks. Context matters. But let's get into the chat. I think this will give us more points to talk about, actually. Jamrock always, I'm blaming Cat. It's his fault. He didn't take enough shots. That's true. He did not. Shout out to A-Train, rocking with us, East Blue Drew. I appreciate you. A-Train, it was maddening how they kept taking the 3 when it was clear they weren't falling. A-Train, I think this is the Knicks. They want to put up 43s per game. They do shoot it at a really good percentage, top 5 in the league. Last time I checked. They feel like this is their best way to win, to get into the key and get clean looks. And it seems like they're willing to, they're playing the percentages. I would, is one way to frame it, that on the days when they don't fall, we will lose. But if we stick with this, this is our best shot of winning. What's your thoughts, Geoff?
I think that's exactly right. I think that's 100% correct. You've got, you know, you trust in your process, right? We're a 37% 3-point shooting, whatever we are, and you're going to trust that we're going to put in that work. We're going to get that volume. And then, at the same time, you gotta, hope that you don't have one of those. And we've actually had a lot of nights recently where we've been above our average, right? We've had 44% games and so forth quite a bit. So it may just be one of those, regressing to the mean kind of a games, and you just kind of have to live with it. But again, I think the Hawks had a lot to do with our struggles last night. Like, I thought that their game plan was superior. Quinn Snyder, I think he's their coach, did a really good job of identifying the Knicks' weaknesses, and they attacked them extremely well. And the Knicks came out low energy, I thought, for the most part, especially through the first 3 quarters. And you can't play, you can't just try and make it all up in one swing, especially when you're down by whatever it was, 28 or 24. And I think we actually had like a 9-point lead in the first quarter. I think we shot pretty well, early on. And then when that went away, but you were a coach, you can't have your defensive effort. You can't have everything relying on your shots falling, right? You got to play with that level of energy, even when they're not, right? And I think Jalen Brunson kind of spoke to that in his post-game comments, where he's like, this wasn't the requisite effort that we need from us, and we need to regroup and show up better tonight. And so I think there's a realization that they didn't give what was required to win the game from a team-wide perspective.
Yeah. And I will say there have been games this season where the Knicks threes weren't falling and they found other ways to win. This just wasn't one of those nights, right? A game where the threes weren't falling and they had more points in the paint than they usually did, right? They would just, script and grind and find an alternate way to win. But, last night you don't have spacing. You don't have your two biggest offensive rebounders in the game. The defense is not, to me, I don't think this was a defensive loss, but the defense wasn't great. It's just too much to overcome. Shout out to coach. No bigs, no wins. Fair. Jamrock always. Last night you could blame attrition. However, the poor defensive was always going to catch up. Yeah, the coach did talk about that last night. I think he does want them to play better defensively, and so do I. It's hard to win with 99 points in this league. It's just, I mean, do you think that this, even if the Knicks were at their ceiling defensively, whatever that is, do you think that ceiling is holding teams under 98 points? Like, I'm not making excuses for them. They do have to get better defensively. Mike Brown said it. The team knows it. We watch it. We know it. Last night in particular, I'm saying the Knicks could have been at their best. I still think they wouldn't have held Atlanta to 98 points. To me, I just feel like last night's loss was more on the offensive end. But we can agree to disagree, right? We can agree. And both things can be true. The Knicks have to be better last night. I mean, better defensively. But even their best defensively, I don't think gets it done last night. But we'll see. A-Train, Yabusele was in there too long. Would have rather seen Diawara have those minutes, faults and all. Okay.
I didn't think Yabu played bad last night. I thought it was one of his better performances of the season, actually. And nobody was really guarding anybody, but I didn't, at least it didn't stand out to me. Maybe it did to you that, oh, this was a terrible Yabu game. He's killing us when he's in there. I didn't see that. I mean, maybe you saw it differently.
I thought it was okay. He hit shots, not just threes. I was like, oh wow, like going to the basket, hitting layups. 3 of 5 last night, 8 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. The requisite turnover. He had 2 of them. Last night went to the line twice and made both of them. But when he comes in, he has to get at least 1 turnover. I don't care how many minutes he plays, he has to get at least 1 turnover. But I thought Yaba was good last night. King Ribby, he said, I can't agree. We were missing Mitch. If we had him, we win in this game, in my opinion. Smash the like, subscribe, and share. I don't know how, I mean, perhaps let's just say off of the Mitch's offensive rebounds, he does. If you feel like the Knicks lost because they weren't getting the space on their threes, right? They got up 40, but if you want to argue, they were more contested than usual, and that Mitch would have helped, and that on his offensive rebounds, when he sprays, to use Mike Brown's term, out to the 3-point line, those would have been cleaner looks. And you want to argue that, that would have, helped our 3-point shooting, 3-point percentage, fine. If your argument is that we would have been better defensively, fine. Your thoughts, Geoff?
Well, first of all, he's only going to play probably 18 or 20 minutes, right? So you still have the rest of the game to worry about. He does provide rim protection, and that's valuable. I think the Hawks really did a good job in the mid-range and in the paint against us. So I think he would have helped in those areas. But, again, 111 points is not like a horrendous defensive effort overall. It's scoring 99 that was the biggest issue, and I'm not sure that Mitch's presence on the floor brings us another 15 points, and maybe it does because he gets more rebounds and those extra possessions, but we won the possession battle already, so it's not like, from that standpoint, I don't think I think it's easy to say if Mitch had played we would have won. But I think that may be an oversimplification, and that's from a guy who really likes Mitch.
Yeah. Shamrock always, we all know what's coming when we reach the playoffs. Much bigger wings will guard Brunson, and he will struggle. How many air balls has Brunson shot the last 2 games? Shamrock always, are you down on Brunson? Because if you watch Brunson, like, I don't know if you can, and maybe I'm watching a different game, but I'm talking about over the course of Brunson's time here. Like I said earlier, I am not buying into the narrative that the playoffs are going to come. Brunson is going to struggle against bigger guards. Brunson is a playoff riser, right? He's somebody whose game gets better in the playoffs. He scores more in the playoffs. When the lights are brighter, when the defense really can key on you more, when the further you go into the playoffs, you play better teams, right? So everybody may know how to beat the Knicks, but when you play in better teams, they actually have the talent and the execution to make it happen, right? And he's always risen to the occasion. So no, I am not buying into this narrative that Brunson is going to struggle against bigger guards in the playoffs, because that has not been the case. Right?
Ask Amen Thompson.
Right. That has not been the case. So you may be able to point to maybe 1 or 2 games, but how many playoff games have Brunson played in a Knicks uniform? And what are the percentage of those games has he struggled against length and physicality? 50%? 60? 70? 80? No. How about 8, 9, 10%? Right? Like, I mean, I get it. It when it does happen, you're like, whoa, this is really going to be a problem. But how often does it happen? So I'm not buying into that narrative. And even if Brunson has shot air balls, again, how many air balls has he shot compared to how many, I'm not going to even say non-air balls, compare the air balls to how many shots he's made, what, 0.3%? Like, so I don't know. Maybe let me know, family. Are you Jamrock? To me, it sounds like you're a little down on Brunson. I could be wrong, but it sounds like you're a little down on him. But I want to ask the rest of the Knicks family, what are you seeing from Brunson? Are you down on him, as well? Do you believe that he struggles against length and physicality all the time? You're not talking about at times, but all the time. And Geoff, obviously, if you want to weigh in, you can.
Well, he just did win Eastern Conference Player of the Month, so Brunson did. So, like, he's not struggling that much. I mean, it's not like he hasn't played length the entire month of December. So, look, throughout the course of a season, you're going to have games where your shooting percentage is better and games where it's going to be worse. He obviously didn't make his 3-point shots last night. Not worried about that long term. I think that he'll be better. Other than that, I mean, outside of with struggling 1 for 10 from the field, look at what he did inside the arc. He was really, that means that he was doing damage. When with his dribble penetration game, and so we're gonna have games where even Steph Curry goes 1 for 10 from the field, from the 3-point line. Sometimes that's how percentages work. Right. And so I'm not overly concerned about it. I don't think we have a Jalen Brunson problem. I've seen Brunson get 40 points in the playoffs on multiple occasions. I've seen him put up numbers where it was just like, oh, the only other player who's done that is Michael Jordan. So, we should trust in the player that Brunson is. I get frustrated with him at times too, from a process standpoint, especially, and I've done that a lot. I think through the first 3 quarters, he calls his own number quite a bit more than he has in the season past. And I think sometimes his percentages during that time frame are lower. But then he seems to pick it up in the fourth quarter when we need it the most during a lot of those games, right? And so, I'm not going to kill JB for last night when you're down, multiple players and you've got McCall is putting up a new building and OG just doesn't have it really much either. I don't. If you want to say he's the captain and he's supposed to carry us by himself, I mean, I guess there's a world where I can understand that, but I don't think so.
Yeah, he was 9 of 15 last night outside of his 3-point shooting, which was 1 of 8. A-Train, having Mitch out there would result in more rebounds, but guys weren't hitting shots. Andrew K., Happy New Year to you. Thank you for joining us. Knicks were 23-11 last year as well at this point. Okay. Wayne Peterson, appreciate you. We're going to need Towns and Mitch tonight. Yeah. I wonder if Embiid is playing. I mean, he's not the Embiid of old, but still he does give them size, and he's still 2010 and is asleep on one leg, right? It makes a difference if he's playing or not.
It's Madison Square Garden, Queen. He's playing. You just chalk it up. He's going to be there.
Yeah. Atlanta's defensive schemes on Brunson were really good. A lot of trapping and forcing Brunson into uncomfortable shots. Okay. All right. Andrew K. says Dyson Daniels owns Brunson.
I think the last time we played him.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but he does make it tough. Go ahead, Geoff. I'm sorry.
He didn't the last time we played him, and I think that up until last night, the Hawks were 1-4 against us in the last 5 times we played them. So I think that is big time hyperbole in my opinion. I don't think that's true at all.
Okay. East Blue Drew, our defense is always going to have a JB and Cat problem. Okay. All right. We won't be winning nothing, not being a top 10 defense. We can talk about net rating all we want. The offense will slow against some of the better defensive teams. Yeah, absolutely right. I don't think you need to be top 10 though. You can't be bottom 10. I don't think you need to be top 10 though. Do the Knicks need to be better? Absolutely. Do they need to find where their defensive ceiling is and be that most of the time? Do they need to step it up in crunch time? Yes. I don't believe this team needs to be a top 10 defense to win a championship. And if you're counting on them being a top 10 defense, it's a wrap. I just don't think that's part of this team's DNA. What's your thoughts, Geoff?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I was skeptical of the ceiling of this team defensively all year long, just because I don't think that we have really the personnel to be an elite defense. But I think that Jordan Clarkson has been better than advertised on that end of the court for most of the season. I like what I've seen from him, but again, we've missed like 34 games from our starters through 34 games. So we haven't been whole very much. And so maybe that gets us more consistently up to 10, when Mitchell Robinson's not on a, minutes restriction and load management restriction and, ambulance is coming restriction, whatever the restrictions may be on him right now. Towns is an excellent rebounder. Hart is not the best one-on-one defender, but I think he's a decent team defender. Again, probably our top 3 rebounders were out of the game last night. And so I think that makes a difference as well. But we actually did board pretty well, and we didn't make shots. So it was just a weird game overall. And, small sample size. The defense needs to be better, but I think a lot of the defensive issues have to do with the injuries. That's my take on it. I'm not using the injuries as an excuse. I think that they could and should be better, but I do think it's making an impact.
And I think the other thing is, why do you think the offense will slow against some of the better defensive teams? Because let me just say this real quick. Because think about it. Yeah, they're going to ramp up their defense in terms of intensity, but you can't move faster than the ball. So we're not talking about, Brunson going one-on-one, OG going one-on-one, Bridges going one-on-one, Cat going one-on-one. And when teams ramp up their defense, that's going to be really hard for. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting the advantage and moving the ball. That's what we're talking about. Right? So they're never going to move faster than the ball, right? Towns is always going to create that space, that space for us, right? So sure, if the Knicks aren't hitting their shots, they're going to lose. You build a team that's based on offense, the offense needs to percolate, right? So if you build a team on offense and you're not hitting your shots, you're going to lose, period. Sure, your defense, can help hold you a little bit, but this team was not built on defense, right? This is a roster construction issue as well. Everybody is getting on the team. Oh, we're not playing great defense. We look at the players on the team. I thought they've done a really good job trying to insulate Brunson and Cat with lineups, right? You can bring McBride in. You got first of all, you have OG and Cat OG and Bridges in the starting lineup. You can bring in Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if his minutes goes up in the playoffs. That's going to help your defense. You can bring in McBride. So you can have defensive lineups in the playoffs, right? But as far as our offense is concerned, you bring 2 to the ball on Brunson, he moves it, he sprays it. Now, if they don't hit shots, you're going to lose the game. You're going to have those passing lanes. You're going to have, I get it. Teams will ramp it up in the playoffs. I get it. I just feel like if the Knicks are on their game with the offensive players they have and the talent they have, they'll be able to get their shots. Let me put it that way. They'll be able to get their shots. I don't care who the defensive team is, whether they hit them or not. That's going to be the difference in whether the Knicks move on or not, in my opinion. Geoff, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think that you have to look at, is what we do on offense sustainable or is it not, right? And I think you made that point successfully without me diving too much deeper into it. But I think Mike Brown offense is better than the Thibodeau offense. So I think that and I don't think we had moments where we were really good on offense even in last year's playoffs. I think that the offense is going to remain rather elite even come playoff time, because when we're healthy, we create a lot of matchup problems for people. I mean, you can't cover everything. You have to choose, what you're going to give up. And sometimes when you crowd Brunson and two to the ball, he kills you anyway. We've seen that, in the playoffs. And so if that's not working and you're giving up all this other stuff, then that bodes well for the Knicks offensively. I just think with the shooters that we have on this team in a 7-game series, I'm going to trust that they're going to have 4 good games, right? They may have a game or two where they struggle, but I think if you have 4 good games, I think that you can definitely win every series, right? And so I'm not like, I think we're jumping the gun, but I wouldn't use last night's poor offensive performance to say very much about anything, right? There's very specific circumstances. And oh, by the way, if we are starting Ariel HUKPORTI come playoff time, we are going to be a fast exit, and there's not much that we can do about that. Like I don't think there's much doubt about that. So, I'm confident in what this team is going to be able to do in the postseason. Maybe that's an empty confidence. We'll see when we get there. But I think that we're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Mike Brown says they have to get better defensively and in transition, and they do. I don't think any of us are arguing that. But to say you have to be a top 10 defense to win, and to say the offense, slow down. Okay, slow down. All right. It won't be stopped. Slow down. Okay, fine. All right. Every team has a bad loss, even Houston and Detroit. Just got to watch film and get coached up. Thank you, Kim Doc. I think, like, when the Knicks are winning, we riding high like a kite. The Knicks lose, man, we scrambling trying to come out of a tunnel. The Knicks, we were without 3 rotation play, 4 really, and 2 starters. OG is unreliable offensively. Yeah, I get it. Okay. Okay. Let me see. D Block, appreciate you. Bridges is very concerning. He too inconsistent with that mid and 3-point shot. Has lanes to drive but avoids contacts. And how you go games without getting to the free throw line is crazy. It's not his game. I think, every player has a way that they play, and they have a right to that. And I think in terms of roster construction, you try to put, players together that complement each other. Bridges is not somebody who goes to the line. I don't think that's a new thing. It's just him. Okay. Wiz, BKLA, we have no killer 3-point shooting that can stop slumps. I think Deuce usually gets timely 3-point shots for us. But like when you say a sniper, let me ask Geoff in the chat, is Deuce approaching sniper territory? I know he's like 12th, 13th in the league in efficiency. I don't know if he has the reputation yet. He does have gravity, don't get me wrong. I don't know if he has the reputation as a sniper. I don't know. What do you think, Geoff?
I don't know if I would, at the risk of alienating Wiz, I don't know if I would go to sniper necessarily. I think he's good. Is he elite? Maybe. I've at some times this year in the fourth quarter, I've kind of felt that way. But overall, consistency wise, I'm not sure I'm ready to go there just yet. That doesn't mean I'm never ready to go there. You know, maybe we don't have a sniper, but I think that we shoot the 3-pointer pretty well. I mean, OG's in a slump right now, but I think he'll break out of it, before too long. Players have slumps, and he's in the middle of one, and you can argue the timing isn't great, but when is a good time to have a slump, right?
Right.
So it just is what it is, and you work through it and you fight through it. But I don't know. I think the Knicks have good 3-point shooting, if not elite 3-point shooting. Like I think we have a lot of guys. I think Brunson's a good 3-point shooter. I think OG and McCall from the corners are very good. Cat's a good 3-point shooter, especially above the break. Deuce is a good 3-point shooter. I mean, if you want to say that Clarkson and Kolek aren't really there, then okay, I'm not going to fight that. But I mean, I don't know that every single person needs to be great. Landry Shamit's actually very good when he's in the lineup.
So we have enough 3-point shooting, even if we don't have snipers.
I think so.
Okay. And girl one, they look tired to me, or complacent, no urgency, settling for contested threes. Sometimes you have to put your head down and make a play at the rim. Offense failed us more than the defense, as stated. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. I think. David Smith in the house. His guy didn't play last night. Mike Brown, a worse coach than Tibbs. Mike Brown using Cat much worse this year, and Mike Brown using Brunson hero ball too much. But let's just say that's true. Let's just say that is true, David Smith. Is that the only metric you're comparing Brown to Thibodeau on? The use of Cat? Because even if, let's just say, he had a better season under Thibodeau and Cat was better under Thibodeau, when you look at the other ways in which you judging Mike Brown to Thibodeau, would you say overall he's better? Now, obviously, we're not going to know anything until the playoffs, right? Like that tells the story. Like this is early scoring right here. But what about, keeping the guys' minutes down? Doesn't seem to have helped them last night, right? But let's just say keeping the guys' minutes down, like playing the younger guys, even if you don't believe in the younger guys' development, even if you don't believe that they're going to be rotation players, even if it's just that you're stealing minutes with them so that your guys are fresher in the fourth quarter or fresher later in the season, does he get points for that? What about experimenting with lineups so that like Diawara, started for 2-3 games. Then last night he played the 43 seconds in the other prior game in the second half. Then last night he played Diawara played just 6.5 minutes. Now it could have been that he didn't want to start two young players in HUKPORTI and Diawara. It could have been that. But what about the fact that he's kind of experimenting with these lineups to kind of see what he has? I believe that once he's hold, we're going to see this team is back. We're going to see less of the young players. But what about just that he's been experimenting? So I don't know if his use of Cat could be the only metric in which you judge whether he's better or worse than Tom Thibodeau. Like if you want to say as far as the Cat's usage, Thibodeau did it better. I mean, okay, Cat might even agree with you, right? But I don't know if that could be the only metric on whether he's a better or worse coach than Tom Thibodeau.
I don't know if he's better or worse. He's just different. And I think that's why he was brought in, because he's a different voice, right? I think that the calculus that the front office made was that Thibodeau had taken this team as far as it was going to go. And the candidates that were out there that weren't coaching other teams, Brown was one of the better ones. If you want to argue that he wasn't the best one, okay, which guy did you want? And there are cases to be made for some of those other guys. But, I think for the most part, the offense has been extremely good. And I think there are a lot of encouraging signs. You're muted, Steph.
Okay. There we go. Cat's super. Yeah, he is super important to the Knicks' success, but he's super important whether he gets shots or not. And to Jarrell's point, we're going to need him to be his best self, shooting wise and scoring wise in the playoffs. But yeah, he is super important to the Knicks' success. There's no doubt about it.
I think last night showed that he's important even if he doesn't get shots, right? That I think that was the lesson, like how the offense runs, because he hasn't been getting a high volume of looks at all this year, and the offense looked terrible without him. So you're just his presence in the game, just his gravity, just his ability to stretch the floor, and his ability to be a 3-level scoring threat. Makes everybody's life easier, even when he's not having his best shooting game. So for the We Need Cat crowd, this was a great sample of what he does and what we're lacking and what we're missing without him.
Exactly. Also, because of Brunson's style of play, he's a rhythm killer. Wow. Most time the team loses his rhythm because he wants to take over the scoring. Sometimes it's not even necessary for it to do so. Okay. Knicks Nation, I believe Hulk minutes were productive last night. I believe we weren't as good with Yabu at center. It was the lack of size and no finding the right combination to play defense and score to win. Listen, Knicks shot 31%. Overall, 20% from the field. Case closed. Like, just case closed. Oh, we have a super chat. I didn't even see that. Great take debates. Detroit fan in the house. Thank you for always coming in and dropping a super chat when you come. JB Bickerstaff is trying to develop 15 to 20 players for Detroit's long season, like OKC. Yeah, good for them.
Parrish Duggar just put in another one, by the way.
Yeah. Some may argue that, Mike Brown is doing the same thing with the HUKPORTI. Some of it is out of necessity, though. Be interesting to see what happens when we're fully whole. Great take debates. Is this happening in Detroit with your roster fully healthy? Because I know for us, some of it is because of I think all of it is because of the injuries, but we've gotten such positive minutes from them. I think Mike Brown won't hesitate to put them in if there's an injury, foul trouble, or if he just needs to switch things up. So yeah, let me know how that's, if it's out of necessity. Parrish Duggar, no way are we beating a big playoff team without size on the floor that you just beat a week ago because of our size and rebounds. No Cat, no Mitch, no chance. Well, yeah, we needed Cat. We definitely needed Cat last night, and I think Mitch would have helped last night. I don't know if I want to make a blanket statement like that because size is not always the advantage. Like a lot of times people feel that if there's a mismatch, size always wins out. Sometimes speed wins out. Right? So I'm not going to just make a blanket statement that size always wins. And the Knicks did out rebound Atlanta last night. The offensive boards made the difference, though. I think we were out rebounding on the defensive board. So fair. All right. Anything else, Geoff?
I think we've talked about every angle of this one. I kind of want to just put it behind us and burn the tape, and hopefully we get a better result against Philly tonight. Or it's in Philly, right?
No, we're home.
We're home?
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, we're home tonight, yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's get after it.
Yep. Let me double check it real quickly, but if I'm not mistaken, we are home tonight. Yep. 7:30 7:30 game. We're at home, and it's going to be interesting to see if Towns doesn't play tonight, how the Knicks respond, because they also have good perimeter defenders as well.
I think being able to control Maxey and Edgecombe is the big question tonight. The point of attack defense is going to be tested supremely. The Sixer team is really starting to come around, and when George and Maxey and Edgecombe and Embiid are all on the floor, and Embiid has played 4 of the last 5, and he's done a good job in most of those games. So, yeah, this is going to have a playoff feel to it, I think, especially with Philly wants to make a statement at the Garden that the win the last time was not a fluke. So,
yeah. All right, Knick family. I appreciate everybody that showed up in the chat. I appreciate the super chats. Everyone's being, very. I love the chat, man. You guys always come in with good points. You're always, very active, and we do our best to try to get to as many of them as we can, and to comment on them. So it's not just you guys listening to us. We do want, as much as we can, listen to you guys as well. And listen, we don't always have to agree, right? We can agree to disagree. And that's what makes this community great, Geoff, I appreciate you. You're still in my thoughts. You're still in my thoughts and prayers, you and your family.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Oh, now Ajay is gonna come in like Freezy and man. Shout out to Ron Cleveland at the tail end when we're saying goodbye, and try to extend the show for 5 more minutes.
Well, we did get another super chat, so we great debates.
We're gonna give them like 5 minutes, okay? Come on, we've been on since 10 o'clock, and we went over.
No, listen, so Queen, I literally just came to say condolences to Geoff. So that's why I come at the end of the show, just say Geoff, man, from my family to yours, prayers to you and your family, bro. It's like, stay strong, and we always here for you. Hopefully you know that, and
I do.
Whenever you want, man, you can always reach out, and we'll do whatever we can to make it. You can't make it easy for you, but I don't know, whatever we could do to
That's all that you can do. So I appreciate that very, very much, sir.
So you see that, Queen? Not even 60 seconds.
All right.
We got 2 more super chats though, so he's extending the show.
I can still say a little. I can say a little something about the game. Go through the super chat. I say something.
Let me do the super chats first. All right. Queen, not easy to do. Detroit GM is trying to get roster to buy in. Yeah, he's talking about them using, playing their bench players so that they can be ready for the playoffs. Basically, to grow the bench so that when the playoffs come, they can contribute. Just trying to get the roster. So do you think there's some complaints? And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a super chat. It doesn't have to be a super chat response. Great debates. Do you think that the starters are pushing back because they're getting less minutes, less touches? Let me know. But it doesn't have to be a super chat. We appreciate you dropping by. Jamrock always last 40 NBA champs. Only 4 were outside the top 10 defensively. Okay. And
let's be 5.
We will be the 5th. and we will be the 5th, right? Listen, something could be descriptive and not prescriptive, right? You're just describing what has happened, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way it can happen going forward, right? This is a different era. So I'm not quite concerned about what other teams have done. Historically, the teams couldn't win with playing the way Golden State played, right? When they first started winning champions. Like, there's no way you're going to be able to win championships playing this way. This is not how the last 40 teams have won it. And how many, they right now, they got like 672 championships playing the way they played, So, listen, we all want the Knicks to be better defensively. Do not get me wrong. I don't think the Knicks have hit their defensive ceiling. I don't think when they do hit it, it will be a top 10 defense. But I still feel the Knicks can win a championship at their defensive ceiling, whatever that is. I'm gonna die on that hill by myself probably, but I think that their defense can get better than it is right now because we've seen it in stretches. And if they can maintain that, that'll be good enough to win a championship. Anybody else want to comment before I go to Paris Douglas super chat?
Historically doesn't mean it's not a probability.
Right.
That's what's happened. That doesn't mean that's what has to happen. It could change.
But so much different.
Say that again, Jeff.
The game is so much different. Than it was 10, 15 years ago. Like, it's evolved, it's transformed. There's a lot more emphasis on 3-point shooting and getting to the rim and those sorts of things. So, we're not in the days of Hakeem and Patrick and Shaq and David Robinson anymore. You know what I mean? Everything is a lot more perimeter oriented. That's just the league that we see. And so, yeah, you want to be able to defend those things, though, obviously, and we have shown a weakness against 3-point shooting all season long, but that wasn't why we lost against Atlanta. Ajay, though, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's cool. We lost to Atlanta. We just the guys. A lot of guys had bad games yesterday. A lot of guys, and obviously, we didn't have we were missing a lot of guys, but the guys who were there, they didn't play great. Mikal Bridges didn't play great. Don't look at the stats because he scored a lot of points at the end of the game. OG Anunoby tried, but it just wasn't falling for him. Jalen Brunson, he was hounded all night with Dyson's defense. Or double team, and there were a lot of stuff going on. We didn't have a bad game. So I wouldn't worry about the game yesterday. So it's not like if we come up on Atlanta in the playoffs, we're gonna have anything to worry about. I wouldn't.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Paris Duggar, when you are small, your shooters are burning too much energy trying to guard bigger guys, rebound at the rim. It kills the leg. Okay, well, we Mike Brown is extending the rotation. Okay, so I think we're gonna be fine. Paris Duggar. Yeah. The Knicks were small last year. They were within 1 or 2 games of the finals. There's no perfect team, right? Every team that's won a championship has had some limitations, right? They didn't have the speed, or maybe they didn't have the shooters, or maybe they weren't good in this aspect of the game. OKC won a championship and they're not a good rebounding team. If I remember correctly, when I was looking at their stats, the Knicks stats compared to other teams, the championship contenders last year, and I was following that throughout the season. If I remember correctly, OKC wasn't a great rebounding team. You figure it out. You find a way. You lean into what you do well. Yeah. Jamrock, it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to agree. You believe the Knicks need to be a top 10 defensive team to win the championship because historically that's been the case. I get your point. I'm allowed to disagree. with what has historically been and say, I believe even if the Knicks aren't a top 10 defense, they can win the championship. I can disagree with you, and I could disagree with history.
Absolutely.
You understand? I mean, it's good. I mean, we agree to disagree. I get your point. I respect your point. I understand your point. I just disagree. I disagree. This team can win a championship if they're not a top 10 defensive team. That's my take. That's it. You know? Oh boy. And it's not about logic, it's belief. It's not about logic. There's no logic when it hasn't even been 100%. There have been other teams who have done it. So it's not a logic thing. Right? Come on. Anything else?
One other thing. I want to say thank you to everyone for your thoughts and your prayers and well wishes, and it really means a lot to me. You know, Queen always opens up talking about Knicks family, and that's what this is. And I'm very appreciative for my Knicks family, and every one of your well wishes and condolences are heartfelt and appreciated, and I thank you very much for helping me try and get through this tough time. So shout out to the chat, shout out to our friends who come along, and thank you, Ajay, for coming on this morning specifically to say that. I appreciate you very much, my brother. And Queen, you're the best, lady. I'll die. That's the hill that I'm willing to die on. Queen's the best,
and you won't die on there by yourself.
Yeah. Jamrock, don't be disrespectful. It's not a vibe. It's not a vibe. It's a different take. So you're not going to disrespect. Your take is logical, but my take is just a vibe. Okay? You want to be a part of this community? Be respectful. We can agree to disagree, but don't say that mine is just a vibe, but yours is logic, is statistical and analytical. We're not going to do that here. We're just not. I do want to get to before we get out of here, because Great Take Debates answered my question. GM Trajan Langdon during the regular season has Cade, our superstar, and our lottery picks, along with our veterans like Tobias Harris, policing this roster construction and strategic direction. Okay. Yeah. Listen. We're finished with Miami. I'm like, wow, we finished with Miami already so early in the season, but I'm looking forward that we have not even started our series with Detroit.
Monday. Right? It's Monday. This is the first game.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited about that.
I hope we're healthy. I hope we have a full roster. I really, really want to measure up against Detroit. I want to see where we're at. They're they're an excellent team. I watched a few of their games. They play tough, they play smart, and they just like us. They just like it's not over until the final buzzer with them. Like, I mean, they keep coming at you. So I can't wait to see this matchup to see where we're at.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it as well. Geoff, I appreciate you. Ajay, I appreciate you. Hollywood, giving us a little bit of your time, coming on to support Geoff and giving us your take on last night's game.
Always. I think we got one more super chat, Queen.
We got one more super chat, do we?
Before we sign off. I thought that I saw one more, but they go by so fast. I'm trying
to. JJ in the chat. I feel Bridges and OG will be our downfall. They're too unreliable.
Inconsistent. But
yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be our downfall, but yeah, they gotta work on that.
Okay. Jamrock, with some clarification before we get off. You said it's a belief. I said it's a vibe. How is that disrespectful? Okay. But a vibe to me is hairy, airy. My belief based on what I've seen from this team defensively in stretches. So it's not like a unfounded belief. It's a belief based on what I've seen from this team in stretches, that I believe if they do that more consistently, they will be at their defensive ceiling, which I don't believe is top 10, but I believe is good enough. So that's what I believe, like a belief based on what I'm seeing, not a mystical vibe. Nick Nation, I'll be on tomorrow, 10 a.m. And whoever else wants to hop on tomorrow to recap the Philly game, 10 a.m., me and Nick Nation, we'll do that as well tomorrow morning. Anyway, again, Geoff, Ajay, the panel, the chat, the silent listeners, the replay gang, we appreciate you. Until next time.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't stop.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't stop.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't stop.
What?
Don't stop.
What?